Okay, so we are all set to begin with our another exciting session on connecting the thoughts. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, to this very beautiful Thursday afternoon. This crisis has created forces of changes that have affected three major dimensions of work: the work itself, who does the work, and how the work is done. To create values from these changes, organizations should take a proper border practices. We define the future of work as a result of many forces of change affecting three deeply connected dimensions of organization work, workforce, and workplace. Join us and be the part of insightful session where our expert will be sharing their insights and experience on how leaders can redefine or redesign the way and the place of work. HREI welcomes you all to the session of Connecting the Dots, Building Resilience, your own and your workplace. To know more about HRA and its events, I would request all the participants to visit the link and details posted in the chat window. It would be great to have all the participants' feedback. We'll be running a poll before the Q&A session. Request all the participants to kindly give your feedback on the session. I now take the privilege to introduce our esteemed panel member for today's webinar, Mr. Tejinder Oberoi, Executive Director, Signet Infotech, and Chairman Director, Asia IT Association. He was the key team member of conceptualizing and organizing committee of Vibrant Startup and Technology Summit, the flagship IT event of Gujarat. After having a relishing career as the face of sales and marketing department of Tata Donnelly Limited, TSS Mobile Communication Limited, Microwave Communication Limited, and Johnson's Limited, Tejinder is the executive director of Signet and oversees the horizontal and vertical business development, overall business strategy and infrastructure initiative, and is determined to make Signet Infotech a global icon of technological excellence. His expertise in sales and marketing, software development, and business developments are invited by the constantly delivering solutions in conjunction with business requirement. He has a BE in electronics from University of Pune, post-graduation diploma in marketing and sales, international trade and finance management. You can also follow him on LinkedIn. The link for the same has been shared in the chat window. Our next panel member is Ms. Sonali Ngale, Director HR, an human resource profession with hands-on experience gained in designing and implementing HR processes, capabilities, building interventions, and talent management initiatives in consulting, service, and engineering industry. Sonali brings in her diverse experience of 20 years working in consultancy, engineering, and technology organization. Her key contributions have been in the space of HR processes, designing competencies, frameworks, and creating practices which align to the culture of the organization. She has been the recipient of ISTD Promising HR Professionals and also has authored paper in NHRD Journal. You can follow her on LinkedIn. The link for the same has been shared in the chat window. Our next panel member, Mr. Vikas Dua, Chief HR Mentor, Athyan and Advisor, BRICS Chamber of the Commerce and Industry. Vikas is the Chief HR Mentor of Athyan, a distributive HR tech firm working on enhancing and democratizing knowledge sharing in the academic space. He is an accomplished HR expert with an over 18 years of experience in the recruitment field. Vikas has worked in both startup and large corporations like Wipro and Concentric driving HR in APAC region. As advisory of BRSA Chamber of Commerce and Industry, member of Industry Council of FWA, Vikas is also working towards supporting the students and young professional community in their learning and entrepreneurship objectives. Vikas is also a TEDx speaker and a vlogger and a blogger on HR practices, sharing his learning under his self-designed HR in My Heart brand umbrella. His writing has been published by leading HR magazines such as Human Capital and People Matters and the Global Talent Culture, working on work blogs. You can also follow him on LinkedIn. The link for the same has been shared in the chat window. I will now introduce our panel moderator for today's session, Mr. Ranjit Khompi, Head L&D Fashion and Lifestyle Reliance Retail Limited. Ranjit is an award-winning business professional with 24 years of experience across marketing, consulting, and HR. He has held leadership roles in product management, international trade, human capital consulting, global talent management, and PL roles for international geographies across diverse sectors for offices, automation, automobiles, IT, outsourcing, insurance, telecom, retail. In his current role, he leads the talent readiness for more than 31,000 employees for fashion and lifestyle business in India's largest retailer by driving business outcome and focused HR interventions. You can follow him on LinkedIn. Details for the same has been mentioned in the chat window. I now hereby hand over the platform to you, Ranjit. Over to you, Ranjit.
Hey, thank you very much. And everyone, very good afternoon. I'm sure the next 1 hour is going to be very exciting with experienced industry stalwarts with us. So all of us have gone through last 1 year, in fact, when the COVID happened and the pandemic, while we've gone through our own ranges of issues, problems with our own industries. With the vaccines coming in, especially after the 1st of March, we have the senior citizens getting vaccinated. So slowly, I think the government's target is about 30 crore people to get vaccinated. Employees, in fact, corporates have already started. For example, if I talk about my company, Reliance, we already started tying up with the vaccine providers. So whenever the government allows, the employees and their families will be vaccinated. So slowly, whatever has happened, the storm has passed, and we are now looking at how do we come back. Now, of course, the leaders, HR fraternity, the business leaders have to think about how are we going to actually come back to this? Are we going to come back the way it was? It will not be, because if you look at last 1 year, okay, a lot of things have changed. In fact, digital transformation, there was a joke that was going around. The maximum digital transformation that has been driven is not by CTOs or the CEOs, but by the coronavirus, right? So with this transformation, we'll have to see how things are changing. So if you look at just to be in the businesses, some of the businesses had to really reform themselves. For example, if you know that there is a mortgage firm called as Freddie Mac, they started with the remote building inspection. The roles of people changed. The organizational design had to change. Or for example, you would have seen videos about Practo doing telemedicine, the remote medicine. You don't need to go to the doctor right now. Or if you look at Hitachi, what they've done is at their manufacturing plant, they created sensors so that they can get people to maintain social distancing. Or you got Swiggy's and other people of how restaurant business has really worked around. So if you look at it, people have changed, okay, and things have started very fast. Now, managers and leaders have to ask ourselves, with these innovations coming back, are we going to go back to our business or are we going to use it to transform ourselves? Now, if you look at the surveys over last 1 year, what has really worked is the innovation and the new projects, okay, which has really gone up into the sky. What has been very difficult is culture, maintaining culture, and developing people. So we are at a crossroad right now. From here, we can get around to actually moving how we go, what we do out here, or we actually look at how do we use this. In fact, the way Deloitte puts it across is, for organization, we need to go into 5 R's, which is reflection, recommitment, re-engaging, and rethinking. What we'll do right now is basically, or we have 3 experts with us. We will look at how do they see it from their vantage point. We've got Vikas, who's been an industry leader and now playing an outside-in role. We got Sonali, who actually leads the HR fraternity, and we got Tejinder, who looks at it from a business perspective, running his own business. So we'll get 3 different views of looking at it, and I'm sure we'll optimize it. So let's start with Sonali first. Why do you think we need to really redefine and redesign the way from an HR perspective?
Hi, Ranjit. I hope I'm audible.
Yes, Sonali.
Great. Well, you did give a very good context around the COVID, right? And the COVID was not by our choice, I'm sure. Everybody knows that. It was something which the environment forced on us, and then the entire landscape of work has changed. Well, everything has changed, but then we need to embrace it. I remember March 22nd when the lockdown was announced, and they say it takes 21 days to form a habit. Today, if you look at the past or the history, we are way beyond 250 days of working remotely. Now, this is a great learning, right? This is a great learning from an organization perspective. Working remotely over a period of more than 200 days has forced all of us be organizations, be individual practitioners, professionals, to really think that what is that defines work now in the current scenario, right? And that's where my question comes in first. As I was looking at why is it important to redefine or redesign the work and the place of work? I think that's where the first question comes to my mind is, what does really work mean now in the current context? And I think in the current context, what work means is finding and addressing problems and opportunities rather than thinking about where it operates from, which place it operates from. So I think I have really touched upon two important, powerful words, that is choice, because the COVID was not by choice. It was enforced on us. And the choice now gets translated in terms of choices for employees to choose where and how they want to work. The second I was talking about is, what is real meaning of work? The real meaning of work is finding and addressing problems and opportunities. I think it has forced all the organizations to really think that, is it necessary for me to have an employee stepping in the company? Is it necessary for me to see an employee performing his roles and responsibilities from a physical boundary of work, office that we call about, or providing him or her choices to operate from wherever they want to? I think with this, it has become very pertinent and important for us, because last 200 to 50 days has shown us that we can certainly have a borderless workplace. It has shown that boundaries do not really define a space of work, or boundaries do not really define the roles and responsibilities. What encompasses now is to look at what kind of platforms, avenues, tools, and technologies can we provide for the employees or for our colleagues to really work seamlessly. And that's what really forces us, or that's really what basically helps us think inside on why it is important now to redefine the workplace.
So I think it's a combination of what is coming to us versus the choices that we make, right? So let's listen from Tejinder. When you're looking at business, and in fact, I'm not sure what kind of a revenue impact your organization had when the COVID came in, but do you see any need to really redesign the work? And if it is, what is the reason?
Well, Ranjit, what is very interesting is that things have already happened. The working habits have changed. The working style has changed. And if any of us believe that our offices are going to be as vibrant as they were earlier, I think we'll be dreaming in the dark. So what possibly each IT manager or every CTO dreamt of, that his whole team can work from anywhere, that concept happened in less than 7 days. Whatever it took at that time, we used to very proudly go to the customers and say that our teams work from within our office, through our firewalls, within our LAN network, and in the security of the system. So we were very proud in projecting that image. And here a scenario happened where in less than 7 days, we had to procure whatever laptops we could, move from a desktop version to a laptop, give remote accesses to machines, run machines within the office, ship machines despite the fact that it was difficult to make movements, find out teams to ship machines to people's houses. People went remote. So people picked up those machines and went to their rural places, or people who were not working in the main centers shifted home. And now when you look at the current scenario, we ran surveys and about 80% of them were very happy doing what they were doing. They don't really want to come back to offices. So as a business looks at opportunities and molds itself into whatever newer situations are offered to it. So we have to flow with the work. So we've already, let's say, there was a panic and knee-jerk reaction when COVID set in, when lockdown set in. We're not very sure how things will shape up. But 3 months down the line, I think we were back. Our customers were happy that we were able to, just a minute. Our customers were happy that we are able to deliver what they're expecting despite COVID. There were security concerns, but things started happening. Teams started popping up. People at that time, even because there were no outward movements, I think teams accepted to work very well, and they delivered good results also. So So redesigning and reshaping, yes. So as children grow up at home and you need to redesign your bedrooms, you need to redesign your studies. As families grow, you redesign your houses. So same thing will happen with offices also. We need more meeting spaces. People will come once in a while. You need more conference rooms where you can have meetings like this, teams coming in. You need, let's say, town halls to be organized digitally. Physical movements is not there. And then you need, let's say, the desk work. So let's say we build an office and we wanted to have biometrics everywhere. Now you don't need biometrics typically.
Oh,
One, nobody wants to touch that biometric machine. And two, people come only for meetings, especially only where face-to-face meetings are required. So where is the choice? It has happened.
right.
All we need to do is to adapt and flow into the system and provide that infrastructure and whatever is required to allow that redesigning so that convenience is again built in.
True. Yeah, I think completely with you. In fact, people are actually settled in the new way of working. I'm not sure how many of you actually conducted any pulses with your employees. In fact, I heard, in fact, companies were very happy. Initially, they were hesitant about the new way of working in the first 3 months. Okay, we're not sure about how performance will be driven. But if you talk about our own organizations, we are very happy because the performance has gone up. Okay, people used to work earlier 9 hours, used to take tea, coffee breaks in between. Now people work for 10, 11 hours because the calls are set up and we actually get up logging in. So have you guys conducted any kind of pulses or maybe because are you aware of any kind of pulses that have actually been conducted where would employees want to go back to the earlier way of working, want to come back to office or they don't want to come back to office?
We did a survey a few months back. Oh, was this for Vikas?
No, Tejinder, go on. No worries. We'll go to Vikas later.
We conducted a survey some time back.
Yeah.
Quite some time back, and we realized that only about 20% of the people were very clear that they want to come back to office.
Okay.
80% of the people were like almost about 65-70% were clear that they don't want to come, and about 15-20% were in gray area. They were okay either ways. So that's a kind of scenario or the pulse that is there.
Right. Thanks, Tejinder.
When we want
Yes,
people to come to office, they only come for those scheduled hours of meeting. They don't really try to see a morning, evening office work. So
right. Interesting. So, Sonali, how about you?
Yeah. So Ranjit, we actually, the day the lockdown was announced in this part of the world, of course, the lockdowns were announced in different parts of the world, and we realized that we need to hear our employees' sentiments, what they are expressing and what is their desire, right? To start off with, we started having the employee listening sessions, I would say that, which were virtual, and the employee listening surveys starting April 1st. And so we started doing it every 45 days to really understand, is there a change in the way the employees are thinking? Do they need more space to work from home? Do they really need more infrastructure? What is the issue basically that they are facing? And when do they want to come back to work? Or do they really want to come back to work or not? Now, when you basically are in an organization which is 4,000 employees strong, everybody has a different view, right?
Yeah.
And as an organization, it becomes a responsibility to also ensure that we are able to cater to different needs of different segments of people, be it millennials, be it basically, different generations that we work in the organization. And I think that has also helped us listen to what employees want and design our workplaces accordingly and also return to work accordingly.
Right.
So yes, employee listening surveys had been a very integral part of our return to office plans and also our future of workforce initiatives that we design.
Sure. Thanks. In fact, that helps. And I'll just come to Vikas.
I'll just add here.
Yeah, Vikas.
In fact, as one of the things that I'm doing, I'm also mentoring an HR tech startup, which is focused on this particular area as well. And I think it's been a very interesting observation that they've had rolling out the platform across various clients. And the good point is I heard Sonali say that they've been checking the pulse every 45 days, which is what organizations really should be doing. And I hope many of them have done that during the lockdown phase. Because clearly, when you look at the data, from the initial set of sentiment analysis that was done earlier in the lockdown, there was a lot of euphoria possibly that came through in terms of having that flexibility to be at home and have that independence and avoiding that commute. But that same survey done 90 days later showed a very different trajectory. And then you started seeing the people's angst about not being able to meet up with with their colleagues, with even the clients. Even missing those sutta breaks, which end up being so productive in many ways, where you can actually get closures on conversations or brainstorm in an informal atmosphere. So I think this is a very clear and critical aspect that you touched early on in the discussion. I think going forward, organizations should be spending more thought on this for sure.
True. Yeah, thanks. In fact, I was just thinking about it that if you ask our organization, we have to go through a restructuring in terms of the job design, even the org design, just to make sure that we continue to create revenues, right? So we've gone through multiple. Have someone who had early onwards, like TCS, had announced a strategy of 25 by 25, that only 25% of the people will be working in office by 2025. That's one end, right? And we can actually call it extreme remote, which is fully remote, the way we are working right now. And we'll actually be creating a net positive economic outcome for the organization, which we might go to hybrid models, which is hybrid remote. Some people come in, some people may not come in, or we might have hybrid by exception, like Jitendra was talking about how we are doing it. Or we might have some places like we have to come on site. For example, in my fashion lifestyle, we are looking at the designers and sample makers coming to office and working, because we tried to do remotely, right? The colors and patterns that you see on the screen vis-a-vis what you actually see on the garments are completely different. So the different models coming in. So in fact, I would like to come to Sonali. How do you decide about giving work to people or get people to work and everything in between? How do you decide it from the HR perspective? How do you model it?
Well, it's a very interesting question, and as you said very correctly, hybrid model is something which is something which every organization is contemplating because of the nature of business that each organization is in. Now, of course, if you look at manufacturing, there's going to be a very different model that they would like to adopt vis-a-vis a technology organization. I think the three perspectives which define work to people and people to work essentially are going to be the purpose, right? What is the purpose nature of work, and how does the organization looks at embedding the meaning of work in the role, right? That's one. I think the second is going to be the potential, right? Okay. So the work which is being provided to the employee, right, or to the particular role holder, how is he able to create value in that, irrespective of where he or she operates from? And I think the third piece, and which is also a very critical piece, is that how an organization supports the employees of the particular company to really reskill, upskill, and be ready for future. I think the entire last 1 year all the learning that I had in last 1 year, I never had in last 20 years, to be very honest. Right? The 1 year has given us a fantastic platform to open our eyes and realize that the environments are going to be very dynamic. And for businesses to sustain, for businesses to really step up and move forward and not really get pulled down, it is very important to integrate the purpose, potential, and perspective in the roles. Now, going back, if I really think, and I started my journey in manufacturing, so that stays very close to my heart. I think when I started 21 years back, work from home for a manufacturing was a big no. I don't remember anybody encouraging doing a work from home at that point of time. And eventually, progressive organizations started talking about flexibility as a choice. And now we're talking about flexibility for all. Now look at the transition which has happened, right? And flexibility for all has been an outcome of what? Corona, which was not invited by anyone for sure, right? But it has forced companies to really, and in fact, in this period, even the manufacturing setups have moved to work from home. We have a classic Tata case, right? We all know what Tata organization is doing now. They're looking at 7 days to work from office, rest all are going to be work from home. So I think the entire concept of working is changing. Of course, flexibility is now getting expanded to everyone. Just the quantum of flexibility may be a plus or minus here and there. I think that's what would define in terms of bringing work to people or bringing people to work for that matter.
True. In fact, the amount of flexibility will also depend on how much the business is integrating the Industry 4.0. where interconnectedness actually allows people to take faster decision, data to flow. So coming to you, Vikas, in fact, if you look at all, and we've been talking about Industry 4.0 for some time, it is just ascended over last 1 year. How do you see AI impacting the business, in fact, or maybe AI impacting the entire work models out here, or people roles, or the way their way of working? What's your view on that?
Sure, Ranjit. So happy to try and throw some light on that. Now, frankly speaking, when you look at this whole reorganization, redefining, whatever you call it, and McKinsey has kind of identified the 4 pillars on which this entire redesigning needs to be based on. One is, like Sonali rightly pointed out, the business. Whether it's manufacturing or services, does your business even support that kind of distributed, remote environment working? Second is the real estate. That obviously in a country like ours continues to play a huge role with the kind of infrastructure available in the larger towns versus the tier 2, tier 3, and so on. Third is the human resources or the capital. Where do you get the people that you need, and are they really available, and will it be possible for you to manage them remotely, ensure the same level of productivity, and so on? And the fourth is technology. What kind of technology infrastructure do you have in place to support all of this remote working? Now, this AI piece that you spoke about actually falls into that bracket, the last. And that's where I think the real transformation is happening. But at the same time, it's the most misunderstood out of all the other parameters I spoke about. The reason for that is that very clearly, when you talk about AI and you start imagining job losses, and you start imagining the robots taking over and so on. But as of now, at least, and I'm not a fortune teller, but I can share with reasonable confidence, having read and followed the space for some time, that we are still at a very nascent stage in terms of AI. When you look at it from a theoretical standpoint, there is something called personalized AI, and then it gets broadened to form what is called generalized AI. We are only at the first stage where AI can supplement and add to whatever processes or that you are doing to give you that X factor in scaling them up. So whether it's recruitment, whether it is checking the pulse of, whether it is invoicing that your organization is doing, that's where AI can really become that additional tool in your arm, if I might call it that. So in the sense that in your workforce, in man suits, for example, if you arm them with intelligence based product, and that's where I think the entire new workplaces are going to have to leverage this new additional tech that we have. And for that, the workforce needs to be ready first, because unless you have that tech first approach, you are just going to play catch up. You're not going to that change. And invariably, we've seen that if you've not moved, you've got left behind. So that's what I would say.
I think you bring us to a very interesting point. So business, the CEOs, CXOs have to really rush up, either because tech is changing, either the competition is changing, or the customer preferences are changing, right? So that's one stretch that they are facing. HR is at the other end. They have to fulfill all these business expectations with the current set of talent and the processes. Right, and that's where the issue is going to happen, because talents with which the skills that they were picked up are the yes talent, and business expects today's way of working coming in. So in fact, coming to you, Tejinder, in fact, while HR is trying to manage all these jugglery, as a business person, how do you want HR to remove obstacles from the new way of working which is coming in? What is your expectation from HR fraternity out here?
Nice question. Like, entrepreneurs expect HRs to be magicians, and HR normally says we're human beings, please. So that conflict, I think, we've always faced. One very clear area is people have gone remote, and there need to be ways in which distance connect has to be better. Otherwise, what is happening is, let's say for service companies, we're realizing service companies, some people started creating service companies like freelance platforms today. Double dating jobs is becoming a part of the story. People picking up offer and then going to 3 places to pick up another offer has also become a part of the story.
Yeah.
Not available physically, those kinds of nuisances have started coming in, and people will get smarter by the day at doing them. So what is required is, let's say there is a requirement of mentoring. Now, how do you do that digital mentoring? And how do you bring in that concept of even supervisors reaching out to their next level in one-to-one mentoring in the digital sessions?
Okay.
You do not even know at times how far your employee is. I know my son, he works for a company in Bangalore and he's been working from Ahmedabad for almost 1 year now. So those kinds of distances need to be covered up digitally. That's one of the largest challenges, and it's controlled very, very closely. So how do you make it really physical in terms of connect while it's a distance learning? Keep them motivated. You keep them aligned with organization goals. So basically, I feel that the communication requirement, the continuous requirement to communicate very regularly with the employee, with organizational branding, with motivation, with inspiration, and even vocally connect is another very strong area which possibly HR has to jump in and do like a magician. HR, or possibly they need to train the project managers to be their extended arms for managing their HR roles in the teams. So those are very key areas that have come in. In addition to that, another thing is coming in is let's say which is infrastructure related and policy related. So what are the new policies? What is the transformation in policies that is coming in? How do we implement those policies effectively?
Okay.
And above that, you already know that KPIs and performance appraisals. How do you bring in a method by which the person is motivated and is able to evaluate, manages performance appraisals? So it's a long list. I really do not know whether a 1 hour session, one session, what can complete that list for the HR.
No, I at least you
Ranjit.
give us the top 3 things. Sorry, so I'll just come to you. I think the last one will be of interest to almost everyone out here is the performance appraisals, which is just on the corner. In fact, I'm sure people are looking forward to about how it will be done differently, right?
I personally feel that that's an outcome, measurable outcome, and therefore possibly there's a lot of interest. But keeping the stock together and ensuring that the productivity is managed needs much more than just a KPI or a performance appraisal system.
True. Only is saying something.
Yeah, I think a very interesting perspective, Tejinder, and I thought that I should specifically talk about this. So at MasterCard also, we are making a segue in terms of how do we look at future of work, future of workplace. I think 3 things that we have is my place, my space, and my pace, right? I think this encompasses basically looking at one, bridging the digital distance, staying closer in a space of virtual reality, and at the same time ensuring that our colleagues have the right tools at their workplace, right networks and right systems so that they don't really lag in terms of their performances.
Right.
So something, and I think each organization will now be, respect and see that how do you provide that pace for physical eco.
Choice of pay. Right? This is what is coming in. So this.
So, in fact, touched upon the sensitive core HR people having to business may wear a more than needs to. Interfacing technology platform. Scenario is that business partner who's walking the floor no longer be suffering.
True.
Role he or she was expected to. Point will be with supervisor, college team. I think going and therefore I think the sooner business with an is insight, which is Asansol, or do my employer forcing me to go to? But all of us
Quite true, quite true. My wife, she takes care of it for an IT organization, and employees were reaching out to her team in terms of asking when is the office going to open up and when you expect to come back to office. Now they are not eager to come back to office. They say if you're going to force us to do that, we'll work for another company, allow us to work from where we are. Ball game here. So it's I think for HR it's a gaining with and advertising them. Try to change the process brilliantly. In the process, they lost they couldn't get the Pepsi customers, and they have more in terms of passenger, right? And only 10% from private cars. But today, if you look at the Nexons and the Zetas and all, they've got about 87. And they made this thought process inside the car. These kind of in the organization, either while adding new ways of working.
My value system does not really get compromised, or we ensure that employees do have that confidence on each other. And one thing which might sound cliche, but it is absolutely important for everyone, starting from the leadership till the down level, is building that trust. Now, how do we build that trust? And while it sounds like building trust is so easy, when it is embedded in the every action that you do with your colleagues. And let's start with a very simple thing, right? And I have times in the evening. As well. Uh, and help the family members cope with the losses or even the challenges, right? I think these are some small examples on building trust base. What I'm trying to communicate is why building trust was so important in a changed context where physical conversations were not possible. And the second piece basically is to ensure to understand if what are the real challenges our teams are facing in terms of contributing to work. And it could be as simple as network issues. I mean, we all know that the entire need for the networks had changed, and it was something which is outside the control of an individual, for that matter.
True.
Outages were something outside the control of an individual, and we cannot reprimand anybody for that. So how do you build those conversations? And the entire merit of values lies in having those dialogues. How frequently were you having those dialogues? How consistently were you having those dialogues? How regularly were you available for your team members, for your colleagues, for your peers as well, for that matter, during the pandemic times, or even now for that matter? I think these all pieces really, stitched together, creates a strong platform for sustaining your values.
True. Nicely put across. In fact, I think if I can just actually take out the crux out of it, I think HR will have to be first a human before becoming a professional to actually implement any kind of changes, right? So I think all these things can be put together. But I think two words clicked with me, Sonali. One was, of course, earlier cases we had mom, okay, coming in, and it happened with the student. Facing at the same time, while it is connected, we're also facing another issue of something which is like a compliance risk or implications of cybersecurity. Right.
Yeah.
Now, coming to you, Tejendra, you've been an IT expert plus a businessman. How do you see what kind of a measure that we need to adopt while going to the new ways of taking care of these two areas where we are becoming more vulnerable?
I see. This is a issue that all of us have been debating, and many of us are debating that this is an issue, and some of us reality is striking the others. What I mentioned when I spoke first was we always were proud of people working in our offices, and that is how we were selling our skills. And we had to change that overnight. Now it requires us to put VDI machines. We moved from a totally desktop environment to a laptop environment overnight, which increased the cost. Now you have to add the VDI cost also. You have to add the cloud cost also. So from an enterprise, a large cash outflow has to be designed and planned for this perspective, for this change. And it has to be adopted very fast, because over a period of time, see, right now you're moving through the COVID and you're moving with the loyalty of your existing teams. As and when things start changing and you have some unscrupulous elements getting into your network, there could be a risk factor could be much higher. So possibly, I think we as an organization have been working on setting a VDI for most of our critical functions. And the cost out has been disturbing, especially this being a COVID year. And second, the salary costs are going through the roof. So the infrastructure costs are also going through the roofs. That has to be addressed right away. So it has commercial implications. At the same time, I think it is important the right kind of policy usage and ensure you're strict about those policies. Second, on those policies. Setup will come in. They're already in and they will be adopted. More structured approaches are required. We will have to come out with ways for training and how to use the infrastructure, how to use the store, not allowing to use wherever went through, in which they very clearly sold and those files. That will be good. Have to and plug it. That is what is very important in this case. Second, what is happening is on another side, there will be another very major change which is happening is most of us in this current world live into small homes. And in these small homes, we do not have separate work areas. Now with families working from home and most of them required to communicate all the time, we will have to redesign our homes also to ensure that families can work from within the home. So you have parents working for office and you have children studying for school from home. And therefore you will run out of your rooms, you will run out of your space. So I think a very major area where HR can play a very important role is working with some architects, designers, and bringing in concepts, easier usage tools for people to adopt. And even large companies can even share these tools with possibly subsidize those tools for their employees to adopt at home. But in adopting a workplace at home will also become a very necessary culture. And that cost also needs to be considered and considered.
I think we're going to save infrastructure costs in offices, right? In fact, like for Reliance, we're also letting go of a couple of offices in Bangalore already, and we'll save that money that can be pulled in this side.
The digital infra cost that is rising will compensate for physical infra cost that you may save.
Okay.
So technically, I don't really see a major cost saving. Like if I talk about us moving from desktop to laptops increases your laptop cost or machine cost by 100%. Adding a VDI actually adds a machine cost straight away again. So it is not going to adding a cloud for usage adds onto that cost also. So you're not really going to enjoy a major cost saving. You may save something on real estate and cups of tea, which the employee will take away from you. Don't worry.
True. But I think it also brings us to another point of view. In fact, see earlier when people, what you talked about is very true. People, the managers would actually be there to look at what people are doing, how they're working. In fact, they could closely physically monitor, check out the work that is being done. Now, when we are moving to a new ways of working, in fact, I would like to actually post it to Vikas. How can the people managers be guided to a meaningful collaboration with the employees remotely? Okay, not actually taking for chai sutta breaks, because that used to be a nice way of connecting with people informally, right? So how do you what are the ways that you suggest people managers can adopt here to collaborate with the employees and guide them for better performance?
Great question, Ranjit. And I think I'm very grateful to both Sonali and Tejinder for actually having answered that in their preceding talks. Reality is that, and this might be a statement which is very difficult for employees to digest, but reality is that monitoring is required, and organizations will continue to require some level of monitoring until, of course, we reach a very nirvana state where everyone works for self-fulfillment and works in a collaborative, seamless manner. But unfortunately, I don't think, basis my limited experience, that we have reached that stage yet. And therefore, the question then becomes is that what do you need to monitor? How do you need to make sure that the deliverables are moving along fine as they're supposed to? The first is, of course, the transaction piece, which is the actual activities which are happening, what is being done. And that's where the cybersecurity piece, which Tejinder spoke about and detailed out so beautifully, kind of fits in. And with each of those laptops which he spoke about, there are softwares and there are checks that you can build into those devices to make sure that most of those transactions are secure and safeguarded. The second angle is the behavior piece or behavior monitoring piece, which is where how is work being done, how is the collaboration happening, what is the culture shaping up to be, how is the teamwork within the group, and how is one person different from the other, and so on. And that's where I think the key word that Sonali used, trust, is the most important, which is something that invariably as employees, as managers, we will need to be more and more mature to absorb that and to build that trust with each of our professional interactions. Having said that, there's only one other thing that is left and which I'll possibly share, is that the measurement of the output, again, something that Tejinder spoke about earlier, that becomes key. Historically, we've been used to a little, I would say, slack system in that sense. I'm sure you'll be able to relate, most of the people on the call as well. In our KRA sheet, we would have something like 5 training days or training modules to be completed in the year, and you'll find that everyone is running to their online training recorded sessions 5 days before the appraisal cycle is due, because they want to tick mark that activity. Now, those kind of KPIs, KRAs will no longer work in this new environment, and therefore you need to go back to ensure that the goals are set in the right way, and the monitoring mechanisms all through the given cycle, whether it's a monthly appraisal cycle, quarterly, half yearly, annually, whatever, is tracked very accurately. So that's how I think we will need to get into this frame of making sure that managers and team members works together towards that common goal.
True, true. Nice to put up. In fact, your statement on KPI also actually gets me to a question by Dr. VLN in the chat out here. In fact, the question, I think, and we can actually ask Sonali to throw some light on this, is how do you do KPI between two groups, the work from home guys and the physical presence? Do you see any need to differentiate? And if yes, what it could be? Sonali, on mute.
I'm sorry. I want to go back to my first starting statement, that what do we define work, right? Work basically is defined as outcome now. Okay?
Yeah.
So when work is defined as outcome, where is the need to basically differentiate measuring? Yes, I think consideration, if you're saying that is important. Consideration basically for situations outside of the control. But from a point of view of measuring, I think measuring is going by outcomes, and outcomes are essentially governed by what you want to achieve in a business. So there should not be any differentiation vis-a-vis somebody working in a setup which is more convenient to him or her vis-a-vis a setup which is convenient to somebody else. At the end of the day, choice of a workplace has been provided so that an individual can become more productive, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I think it's so that we don't actually have a rush for either way of employees picking it up. Maybe that's more convenient. Those KPIs are more convenient. I'll just add up to that. I think that's good. In fact, we have a couple of minutes more. I think we can pick up last one. I think if I can come back to you, Tejinderji. Now, with the work that is actually going back and the data information being available to multiple people, right? Earlier, decision used to be taken at a certain level because the data is to flow in a particular manner. But now, with the kind of information available to everyone, do you see any need of decentralized decision making in the new ways of working that we are doing, and especially from a business perspective?
I think decisions, it clearly depends on how an organization is structured. So you cannot really specify this decision making to the change of work environment. But if people want to grow, and if people want to move over to the next ladder, they need to pass their decision making to the people below them. So that's the easiest way for people to jump ladders. And that's clearly a methodology that has to continue throughout the process. Good systems like companies like yours have a very, very strong decision-making system wherein possibly the roles and responsibilities are very well specified, whereas companies like us have a reasonably diffused decision-making, and people tend to take possibly larger decisions or sway away from decision-making also. So it is purely an organizational structure. As organizations grow larger, they're able to structure their decision-making policies much more strongly. But risk-taking and decision-making, the people who adopt risk-taking and decision-making go up their ladder fast.
Okay.
And that's a very, very clear roadmap. And managers or entrepreneurs who are able to transfer their decision-making with decent control processes are able to grow their organizations faster. So it's a very, very clear roadmap. If you hold on to your decision-making, you're becoming a bottleneck.
Sure. Thanks. I think thanks. That was a quick one, which I thought I can sneak in as one last question before we can come in. I think I am looking at the chat box. I don't. I'll just try and see if there are any questions which are there, which are additionally there. Nope. I think great. I think thanks, Sonali, Vikas, Tejendraji. It was nice chatting up with you on this particularly interesting topic.
Thanks, Ranjit.
Yep.
Welcome.
Thank you.
As Tejendraji said, I think we can certainly have a longer conversation of 2-3 hours on this. There's so much of meat material and there's a lot of thought leadership in this subject that more we talk, the more we gain. Thank you for this opportunity, Ranjit and HRAI.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you, Ranjit, for taking us through this wonderful, enlightening journey of yours on how leaders can manage and realign change by preserving cultural roots. Thank you for all the dear panel members, Mr. Tejinder, Mr. Sonali, and Mr. Vikas for sharing your beautiful insights. So before we move ahead to the closure, I would just like to run a quick poll. Maybe if anybody has any questions, the last chance to ask them. We have received a very positive comments on the chat box. I hope everybody is seeing that. We must do longer hours of sessions on this topic. This is from Sapna, guys.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, for a very beautiful feedback.
Okay.
It's all absolutely 100.
So to all those who have wished to share and learn, you can also access the recording of our today's session on YouTube link shared in the chat window. So before we conclude with our today's session, we would want to thank all our associations, Asia, NASCOM COE, ClipTalk, Telgrow, TLE, LinkedIn Local India and Ahmedabad for supporting these HRI events. To know more about these associations, request you all to kindly visit the link provided in the chat window. Do join us for our next Connecting Dots series on the topic HR Rebound, Defined and Aligned on the 11th of March at 3 p.m. IST. Request you all to kindly register for this event and the link mentioned in the chat window. See you soon. Stay safe, take care, and bye for now.
Thank you
Thank
all
you.
Thank
for
you.
being here.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, panel. Thank you, Tejenderji, Sonali ji, Vikas.